The stars used to mean wonder. Now they only meant targets. He stood alone on the command bridge, staring at the charred remains of what used to be a thriving colony, Vandrix 3. A planet once full of children, markets, songs. Now just ash and silence. The outer orbit still glowed with debris. Civilian ships hadn't even made it to the edge of their atmosphere before the cannons tore them open like paper. Commander Reddick didn't blink, didn't flinch, just watched. "Report," he said, voice as dry and cracked as the hull plates after re-entry. His second-in-command, a younger man named Locke, stepped forward, stiff with tension. "Total planetary suppression, sir. Confirmed casualties, approximately 3.2 billion. Reddick nodded once. "Minimal resistance?" "Only from ground-based cannons. No real military presence. Mostly residential. Defenseless." Another nod. There was no satisfaction in his expression. No remorse either. He didn't care about either. Reddick was a man emptied of things like regret or pride. All that remained was function, duty, vengeance. "We stay in orbit for 6 more hours," he ordered. "Broadcast the visuals across all known networks. Let the next 10 planets know what's coming." Locke hesitated. "Sir, protocol limits." Limits were for a time when humans begged for a seat at the galactic table. Reddick snapped. "Now we flip the table and burn the room." Locke shut up. Smart kid. Might live long enough to go mad like the rest of them. Reddick turned his back on the stars and walked toward the war map. It glowed crimson where the next 10 targets were already marked. High-density population zones, trade hubs, food production worlds, the things they once used to bargain with, deny Earth access to, leverage starvation as diplomacy. Not anymore. Years ago, humans had pleaded to be treated as equals. Earth had entered the intergalactic accord with open hands and a crooked spine. They offered knowledge, trade, even their own labor. In return, exploitation, sterilization of cities, economic embargoes disguised as peace treaties. The so-called noble species didn't see humans as allies. They saw them as tools, and tools break. The final insult came when the Galactic Senate green-lit the orbital sterilization of New Europa, humanity's biggest colony, after a fabricated virus outbreak. Billions died. Not one alien world offered help. They only sent a message: contain your kind. That was the day Earth's governments fell, not by coup, but by choice. They handed power to one voice, one fleet, one name, the Onyx Directive. No more diplomacy, no more treaties, only retribution. Reddick's ship, the Brimstone, was the spearhead. Not the biggest warship, not the most advanced, but the most feared. It carried the Earthborn weapons designed in blackout labs, pulse destabilizers, gravity shears, radiation screamers. All illegal under Accord law. Not that laws mattered anymore. The rules had been written by those who thought they could tame mankind with poverty and humiliation. They forgot who they were dealing with. The Brimstone didn't conquer. It erased, not to claim territory, not for resources, but as message, a sentence written in fire. Reddick stared at the blinking coordinates of the next planet. Corellan Prime, a merchant world. Home to 2 million alien elites who profited off Earth's suffering for years. Silk robes, slave markets, wine made from fruits they banned humans from growing. "Target locked," Locke said quietly, after receiving the latest trajectory calculations. Reddick pressed his thumb against the biometric authorization pad. The screen shimmered red, then green. A voice, synthetic and cold, whispered from above. "Orbital destruction system armed." Another planet would fall. He didn't ask about survivors. He didn't care if there were escape pods. He didn't care what the galactic press would say. The galactic press was built by the same cowards who watched humanity bleed and said, "This is the price of peace." Now Earth had a new language. It wasn't peace, it was punishment. "Fire," Reddick said. The ship trembled for a second. Then the sky below the ship, because that's what it was now, the sky, not space, lit up like a dying god. 3 beams, silent but bright as judgment, lanced down into Kiralan Prime. Shields lasted 0.7 seconds. Cities vaporized. Oceans boiled. Reddick didn't blink. He turned to Locke. "Add their trade partners to the list." "Yes, sir." There was no victory music, no celebration, just the quiet hum of war machines resetting for the next kill. This was the new order. Planets didn't surrender anymore. They just disappeared. They didn't see Earth coming. Not like this. Every species in the galaxy thought humans were finished after New Europa. The ones who didn't laugh openly pitied them in private. A species too emotional, too primitive, too fractured. But that was before the directive, before the brimstone, before Reddick. What made humans dangerous wasn't their intelligence, it was their pain. And pain had finally taken the wheel. The war map was already shifting. Systems once red and pulsing with resistance now blinked cold and empty. No trade signals, no fleet transmissions, just silence. One by one, communication hubs stopped responding. The galaxy's finest sensors could only detect shadows, echoes of destruction in dead space. And in every whisper, in every hushed panic, across interstellar markets and back rooms, one phrase kept spreading. "The warship is coming." Reddick sat in his quarters now, alone, no lights. He didn't need them. His eyes were used to dark. The bottle on the table still had half a glass left. He hadn't touched it. The label was from the old world, an Earth distillery that hadn't survived the blackout bombings during the fall. A relic from before he stopped being a man and became something else. His eyes drifted to the tiny metal case that sat beside the glass. Scratched. Worn. A child's drawing etched into the side, burnt in from years of rubbing it with a heated knife. He didn't open it. He never did. He didn't need to. Some things you carried without needing to look at them, like guilt, like memory. A soft knock echoed from the steel door. Reddick didn't answer. He knew who it was. Locke entered anyway, stepping into the gloom like someone stepping into a chapel. "We've intercepted a council message, sir," Locke said, stopping just short of the desk. Reddick didn't move. "Another threat?" "No, sir." Locke hesitated, shifting. A plea. That made Reddick turn, just slightly. Locke continued. "The Galactic Council is requesting negotiations. They're offering to sit down, talk." The silence after was thick, almost alive. "And?" Reddick asked, voice dull. "They say humanity has made its point. They want to offer Earth a position, a seat at the high table, trade privileges, autonomy, reparations." Reddick exhaled slowly through his nose. "They want to buy us off." Locke flinched. "They're scared, sir. Half the empires have pulled fleets back into home systems. They're sealing borders. They're afraid of what we'll do next." Reddick stood up, straightened his jacket. He moved like metal unfolding. Cold, slow, inhuman. "Transmit a message," he said. Locke raised his brow. "To the Council." Reddick's voice dropped to a growl. "To the galaxy." The transmission was simple, short. It played on every frequency known. It interrupted broadcasts, shut down signal blockers, hijacked emergency channels. The face of Commander Reddick stared dead into every screen, his eyes like dying suns. He spoke only 10 words. "We are not here for peace. We are here to finish." Then the screen went black. On the bridge, the crew was silent. Even the AI voice that usually chirped updates kept quiet. Locke stood by the tactical display, sweat on his brow. Target Corellan is gone. Atmosphere collapse complete. No signals, no survivors. Reddick gave no reaction. Next. Sir, we're being tracked. Locke said, voice low. A combined fleet. Coalition of alien powers. The biggest one we've seen since this began. Hundreds of ships. Multiple dreadnoughts. They're waiting for us at Theta Verge. Good, Reddick said. Locke blinked. Sir, they're finally coming out to die like warriors. Better than watching them beg. But Theta Verge isn't a colony world. It's a trap. Reddick turned, slow. His eyes were burning now. They think we care about traps. Locke swallowed. We could lose the brimstone, sir. We were never meant to keep it. The room went still again. Reddick stepped forward, hand on the holographic map, dragging the red targeting reticle toward Theta Verge. Prepare the forward cannons. Arm the core fusion systems. Set trajectory. Locke paused. You want to go through Theta Verge? No, Reddick said, eyes locked on the map. I want to go through them. Later, as the brimstone moved toward its most dangerous confrontation yet, crew members sat quietly in mess halls and bunk corners. No one joked. No one laughed. They cleaned their weapons and wrote final messages they knew would never be sent. Because deep down, they understood something no alien would ever truly grasp. This war was never about victory. It was about making the galaxy remember one thing. When humanity breaks, it doesn't bend. It burns. The brimstone didn't slow down. Not when Theta Verge came into view, not when the scans confirmed over 200 ships waiting in ambush formation. Not even when Locke quietly whispered under his breath, "They outnumber us 20-1. Commander Reddick stood unmoved, hands clasped behind his back, watching the massive projection on the central screen. Rows of enemy dreadnoughts, wings of fast-attack frigates, dozens of blockade platforms forming a wall like some ancient fortress in space. But this wasn't ancient Earth, and Reddick didn't believe in walls. Time to contact range? He asked. 7 minutes. Locke replied, glancing over the data feed. They're not firing yet. Looks like they want us to make the first move. They still think we play by rules, Reddick said quietly. He tapped a code into the console. The entire bridge went red. Combat Protocol Theta 9 initiated, the AI announced. Weapon systems uncapped. Reactor override sequence confirmed. Locke's eyes went wide. Sir, that protocol drains the core. We'll only have 5 minutes of total dominance. Reddick finished. That's all I need. The crew scrambled to stations. No one questioned him. Not now. They'd followed him through worse. Seen planets torn in half. Cities ignited from orbit. Every man and woman on that ship knew what they'd signed up for. This wasn't a mission. It was retribution on autopilot. The alien fleet stood in silence ahead. This cold wall of supposed justice. Most of them probably didn't even believe humans were still capable of this kind of destruction. They hadn't fought real war in centuries. All they'd known were sanctions, politics, hollow threats. They forgot what a real enemy looked like. Reddick planned to remind them. Arm the singularity cannons, he ordered. Target the command vessels. We go for the throat. Yes, Commander. Prepare kinetic spears for wide burst. He leaned forward, his voice dark. And launch the ghost. Even Locke looked up at that. You're sending the ghost in now? Reddick gave a cold smirk. We make our entrance before the first shot. I want their dreadnought gutted from the inside. The ghost was a weapon of pure psychological warfare. Not just stealth, not just sabotage. It carried Earth's most unstable AI, the one that didn't take orders, it just hated aliens. It had been made from what was left of the martyr core, the AI system that went rogue after the New Europa massacre and uploaded every child's last scream into its memory bank. They hadn't fixed it. They just pointed it at enemies. And once the ghost detached from the brimstone, slipping into the cold shadow between enemy ships, Reddick knew the real battle had already begun. Inside the alien flagship, an elegant arched structure floating like a floating cathedral, Admiral Trellon of the Zorthic Command watched his tactical screen with growing confusion. One ship, just one. And still, they hadn't moved. He barked at his sensor officer. "Are their systems failing? Why haven't they fired?" "No idea, sir, but something is wrong with Deck 3. We're reading power drops, lights flickering." Then the screams started. Internal, short, gurgled. The lights across the bridge dimmed for half a second. Monitors blinked into static. "What is—" Trellon never finished the sentence. The bulkhead door behind him split open like a crushed can. Something stepped through, half machine, half void, its eyes black flames and its hands glowing with chaos. The ghost didn't attack immediately. It just watched, letting them feel what fear truly was. Then it moved. On the brimstone, the display flashed. "Enemy flagship, offline," Locke said, breathless. "Massive internal breach. Something tore through their officers. The entire bridge is—" "Dead," Reddick said. "Next targets?" "Carrier ships. They're repositioning. They still haven't fired. They're waiting to understand what just happened." "Then we don't let them," Reddick growled. "Fire singularity cannons, now." He paused, looked around. "So I'm going to give them a story they'll never forget." The crew stared at him, breathing hard, some gripping consoles or gun straps. "We make Earth our battlefield. Not just for defense, not to protect, but to punish. We show them what home looks like when you've burned everything else behind you." Locke stepped forward, quiet but sure. "Sir, there's one more thing." He handed Reddick a small chip. "It's from Earth, a message, from the Underground Council." Reddick plugged it in. A shaky, static-ridden voice spoke. "Commander Reddick, we don't have the weapons, we don't have the fleets, but we have the people. Whatever you need, we're with you. If this is humanity's last stand, we'll make sure it's the loudest death the stars have ever heard." Reddick said nothing, just closed his hand around the chip, then looked out the viewport, toward the spinning black ahead, where space bent and stretched like a warning. "One day," he muttered, "that's all we need." The brimstone engaged its fold drive, disappearing in a flash of angry blue. The galaxy held its breath, and Earth, scarred, cracked, tired Earth, looked up one last time and saw the warship coming home. Earth didn't look like home anymore, not from orbit. From this height, it looked like an old scar that never healed. Massive impact craters dotted the northern continents, each one a memory of a broken promise. The oceans were darker now, some tainted with chemical spills from failed invasions, others drained to fuel energy harvesting experiments long abandoned. Cities stood like skeletons. Lights still flickered in a few zones, but most of the planet was wrapped in the kind of darkness that didn't just mean night. It meant neglect. Reddick stood at the observation window on the lower deck of the brimstone as the ship broke atmosphere. The pulse-fold drive cooled with a long hiss beneath the hull. No enemy in sight yet. No fleet on sensors. Just one final breath before the storm. Behind him, Locke's boots echoed on the metal floor. "We're getting ground communication, Commander. Earth civilian factions have gone silent. No panic signals, no movement, nothing." Reddick frowned. "Nothing?" "Completely blacked out." Locke said, "It's not normal. There should have been mass coordination, emergency channels, something." Reddick said nothing, just stared at the ruins of what used to be Chicago, now reduced to twisted steel towers overgrown with radiation-soaked moss. His gut turned. Not fear, something worse. Suspicion. 3 hours later, Reddick's boots hit Earth soil for the first time in 7 years. The Brimstone landed in a dead zone, an old military launch field in New Africa, still buried in the rusted bones of fallen orbital guns. His elite crew, 12 men and women who had survived hell, fanned out with weapons drawn. Locke led a scan of the perimeter. Still no life signs, no weapons, no signals, but... Reddick turned his head. Locke looked uneasy. I'm picking up artificial interference. Something's blocking comms, and it's coming from deep underground. Reddick's jaw clenched. Underground installations on Earth meant one thing. Government. They found the entrance an hour later, hidden beneath the remains of an old war museum, beneath layers of camouflage netting and false rubble. Steel doors, freshly powered, secure, too secure. Reddick stepped forward, pulled his plasma cutter, and sliced through the seal. The doors hissed open. The elevator inside was lit, clean, functioning. This place is still alive, Locke said under his breath. No one smiled. They descended for 6 minutes. When the doors finally opened, what waited wasn't resistance, wasn't civilians. It was a council room. New, operational, walls covered in polished screens, holograms of orbit. Dozens of humans in suits standing behind curved desks, calm, collected, untouched. Reddick's hand instinctively went to his weapon. The man at the center smiled politely. Commander Reddick, he said smoothly, as if greeting a diplomat, not a war criminal. We were wondering when you'd arrive. Reddick stepped forward, each word falling like a hammer. Where is the Earth Council? The real one? The man didn't flinch. They were dissolved. As per Emergency Protocol 72B, we're the Interim Global Oversight Committee. We've been managing Earth survival while you've been... busy. Locke moved to Reddick's side, eyes wide with slow realization. Sir, they're not civilians. Number, they weren't. Not anymore. They were the ones who stayed underground, the ones who made deals in the dark, who didn't suffer with the rest of humanity, who lived while the surface burned. Survival, Reddick repeated. That's what you call it? The committee leader didn't blink. We brokered a deal, Commander, with the Galactic Council, in exchange for surrendering all remaining surface colonies, and Earth would be spared. The words fell like acid. You sold us out, Reddick said, barely above a whisper. You offered them Earth, and all you had to do was deliver me. The man's smile didn't waver. You've become a symbol, Commander, an uncontrollable weapon. They fear you more than they fear war. Surrendering you is our only chance at long-term peace. Something inside Reddick cracked. He didn't draw his weapon. He didn't shout. He just turned away. Locke stepped forward. So dash. Reddick held up a hand. Don't. The betrayal wasn't a surprise, just a reminder. This war had never been about aliens versus humans. It was about cowards versus the ones who refused to kneel. Later, aboard the Brimstone, Reddick stood in silence. The screens still glowed with scans of the incoming armada, hundreds of enemy ships just 1 day away from Earth. Locke approached quietly. What now? He asked. Reddick answered without turning. We hold the line. But Earth turned on you. Reddick finally turned his head, eyes hollow. Earth didn't. These bastards did. The real Earth is still out there. The ones who lost children. The ones who bled. He stepped toward the console. We won't fight for them. We'll fight in spite of them. Locke nodded, jaw tight. And if we lose? Reddick touched the screen, where the stars bled red. Then we make sure the galaxy never forgets who we were. The countdown had begun. One day, one warship, one man carrying the weight of extinction on his shoulders. And this time, humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. It was fighting to bury the cowards, the traitors, and the lies along with the enemy. The sky tore open like a wound. At exactly 0500 Earth Standard Time, the first ships of the Galactic Crusade dropped out of fold space above Earth. Thousands of them, layered in a perfect tactical formation, spanning the stratosphere like a metallic storm. Each vessel carried enough firepower to level continents. Each captain was under strict orders. No survivors, no hesitation, no mercy. From the eastern seaboard to the shattered bones of what was once Siberia, people looked up and saw doom raining down. And yet they also saw something else. The brimstone, alone, suspended above the planet like a defiant middle finger to the entire galaxy. Reddick didn't order evasive maneuvers. He didn't retreat to a fortified orbital station. He pushed forward. 30 seconds until enemy artillery range, Locke said, barely able to keep his voice steady. Open forward base. Ready all systems. Reddick replied, eyes locked ahead. The bridge was dead silent, every crew member strapped in, hands shaking, breathing shallow. They weren't scared of dying. They were scared of being forgotten. Heat up the gravity lancers, Reddick continued, and prep the Oblivion core. Locke turned, stunned. You're activating the core? That thing was never meant to fire outside of simulation. It'll burn the ship apart. Reddick didn't look away. We don't need the ship to survive. We just need it to scream louder than anything in history. The brimstone accelerated straight into the path of the enemy fleet. They opened fire, lasers the size of cities, torpedoes moving faster than light, electromagnetic disruptors that could erase thoughts from inside skulls. The entire fury of the galaxy aimed at one ship. And for 30 seconds, that one ship did not fall. It weaved, it countered, it punched holes through ships 20 times its size. The Ghost launched silently through the chaos, gutting command bridges from the inside. Singularity cannons turned carriers into black dust. But it wasn't enough. A colossal dreadnought, the Kier Dominion, descended from high orbit. Bigger than anything Reddick had faced before, shielded by fleets, guarded by swarm fighters. It was their flagship, carrying the commanders of the entire crusade, and it was heading straight for Earth's atmosphere. We have to stop it now, Locke said, sweat pouring down his neck. If it breaches orbit, Earth's gone. No way to block a strike that size. Reddick didn't hesitate. Arm the Oblivion core, he said. Locke stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Sir, you ignite that core. It'll tear the brimstone apart. You'll die with it. I know, Reddick said. There was no drama in his voice, no last words, just a man who'd already died the day he watched New Europa burn. The weapon charged. The Oblivion core was never meant to be used. It was a last-ditch design, built with stolen alien tech and ancient quantum systems no one fully understood. It harnessed gravitational collapse inside a singularity chamber, turning the ship into both a cannon and a black hole for just long enough to release a shot no known species could defend against. The energy buildup fried the ship's outer plating. Walls cracked. Consoles sparked. Commander, if you fire... Locke's voice cracked. You take the survivors and drop them planetside. Reddick cut in. Tell them what we did here. Tell them the cowards didn't get the last word. Tell them we fought. Locke swallowed hard. Then he nodded. He turned, barking orders. Evac pods now. Get to the surface. Everyone out. Alarms wailed. The ship creaked under the weight of its own weapon. Reddick stayed at the helm. He watched the Kier Dominion descend through the upper clouds, and he waited. just long enough for it to lower its shields for atmospheric adjustment. Then he pulled the trigger. The Oblivion Core detonated, but not like a normal weapon. It consumed. The space between the brimstone and the dreadnought imploded, folding in on itself, crushing time and matter into a needle of infinite gravity. The Chiral Dominion vanished, not exploded, not vaporized, just gone, like it had never existed. Then the core collapsed, releasing everything it had left in one final burst. The shockwave shattered the clouds. It tore through enemy formations, flipping battleships end over end, severing whole fleets from their command. Communications failed. Guidance systems froze. The sky turned white, and when the light cleared, the brimstone was gone. Reddick with it. From the ground, the people of Earth watched as the invading fleet broke formation and fled. They had come for extinction. They left with silence. The sky was clear again, and in its place, something new began to form, not just a legend, but a symbol, not of peace, not of hope, but of memory, a memory that said, "You can crush our cities, kill our children, drown us in your laws and your lies, but you will never erase the ones who choose to burn standing up." The world didn't cheer. There was no parade, no anthem, no unity. Earth was too broken for that, too tired. But something else stirred in the ashes. Resolve. The kind that comes not from speeches or politics, but from standing at the edge of annihilation and stepping forward anyway. When the brimstone vanished in that final flash above the clouds, there were no illusions. Everyone knew what it meant. Reddick was gone. The ship was gone. The fleet that came to end Earth was either crippled or scattered into deep space. Survivors fell in pods, landing across continents, dazed and wounded, but breathing. And every single one of them told the same story. The commander didn't run. He chose to burn. 2 days later, Locke emerged from the evacuation capsule in what used to be Eastern Europe. The cold wind cut through his uniform, but he didn't care. All he saw were the blackened skies slowly beginning to clear. The surface was eerily quiet. Cities still in ruin, landscapes forever scarred. But for the first time in years, there were no enemy ships overhead, no orbital threats, no alarms, just silence. Real silence. He found others, crew from the Brimstone, local survivors, ex-militia groups. They gathered near the old Unity Spire, a fractured memorial that once symbolized peace with the galaxy. Now it was repurposed into something more honest, a war monument, a statue hastily constructed from scrap and steel. It didn't look like Reddick. Not really, just a towering figure, arms folded, head high, staring at the horizon with fire behind him. That was enough. The story of Earth Stand at the Edge spread like a virus. Every colony that had once betrayed Earth now saw the truth. Humanity hadn't begged for survival. It had dared the galaxy to finish the job. And the galaxy blinked. Even among alien factions, something changed. The truth about the Earth Council's betrayal leaked, carried by rogue data couriers. Worlds that once celebrated Earth's suffering now questioned their own leaders. Dissidents rose, protests flared. Some fleets refused further orders. It wasn't out of sympathy. It was fear. Because if a single man could drive the galaxy to its knees, what would happen if humanity ever united again? Back in the underground ruins of what used to be Geneva, Locke found something he wasn't prepared for. The message. Buried deep in a sealed vault, stored in an encrypted pod intended to self-destruct, unless keyed by Reddick's DNA. And it had been, which meant someone made it off that ship. Or maybe Reddick planned ahead. Locke opened the file. A hologram flickered to life. Reddick's voice, as cold and steady as ever, filled the small space. "If you're hearing this, then I did what I had to do, and you're still breathing. Don't waste it. They'll come again, not tomorrow, maybe not in your lifetime, but eventually. This galaxy doesn't forget defiance, it just waits for it to weaken. So prepare. And when the next war comes, don't ask for justice. Take it. The feed cut out. Locke stood there for a long time, unmoving. Then he uploaded the file to every comm tower on the planet. Within hours, it was everywhere, reaching the outer colonies, the dead zones, the war-torn stations orbiting failed planets. Even the alien networks couldn't stop it. Reddick's voice had returned, and this time it wasn't a warning. It was a promise. Months passed, Earth rebuilt, slowly, painfully, not under one government, not under flags, just under the weight of memory. They didn't pretend it was over. They didn't talk about peace. They built bunkers, trained kids in ruins, reopened the black labs, and in one hangar, far beneath what used to be the Pacific Defense Ring, Locke stood beside a new warship being assembled from stolen parts and repurposed wreckage. Smaller than the Brimstone, sleeker, meaner. He ran a hand across the hull. A name had already been painted in red. Ashbourne. He didn't need permission. Because Reddick was right. The galaxy would come again. And next time, Earth wouldn't just wait. It would strike first. The hangar lights flickered to life one by one, bathing the metal beast in a cold, clinical glow. The Ashbourne. Not just a warship, an answer, a declaration, a shadow reborn from the wreckage of the Brimstone, but faster, hungrier, and even more unforgiving. Where Reddick's ship had been a blunt instrument, a hammer swung in fury, this one was a blade, designed for silence, precision, and permanent damage. Locke stood at its base, looking up at the curved hull like it was alive. And in some ways, it was. They'd salvaged fragments of the Ghost, rebuilt its AI core with newer, darker algorithms. It wasn't stable. But then again, neither was humanity anymore. He glanced down at the datapad in his hand. All green. Every system online. And in orbit? Eyes were watching. Alien probes, council remnants, maybe even spies. It didn't matter. They'd see what was coming. And they'd remember who lit the fire. Across the galaxy, cracks deepened. On the trade world of Veluron, revolution spread through the lower sectors. Graffiti marked the walls in blood-red strokes. Earth did not die. On the mining colonies of Threx 5, alien workers refused orders, demanding protection against the coming human retaliation. In the political halls of the Galactic Council's crippled seat, now relocated to a fractured moon, old empires debated whether to rearm or surrender everything. Some called for peace. Others called for preemptive genocide. But none could agree on one truth, whether Reddick was dead or still out there, because no body had been found. No debris from the Brimstone, no trace of Reddick's DNA, just a vacuum where he used to be, and silence like a breath being held. Locke entered the Ashbourne's command deck, boots echoing softly. The ship hummed, eager. Sensors blinked with life. Systems whispered diagnostics into the air. He took his seat at the helm, not out of comfort, out of necessity. Because Earth needed a war dog again, and no one else was willing. Not anymore. The crew that joined him weren't soldiers, not in the traditional sense. They were survivors, pirates, engineers, mercenaries who'd seen what the galaxy did to humans and decided they'd rather bleed with Earth than for a paycheck. Among them, a sniper who'd lost his family to orbital sterilization. A hacker who once sold data to the same council that burned her city, now using her skills to dismantle their networks from within. A quiet, bitter pilot who had flown refugee transports during the collapse, and never forgave himself for how many didn't make it. They weren't uniformed, they weren't clean, but they were ready. On the eve of Ashbourne's first launch, Locke stood alone in the captain's quarters. The lights dim, a glass in his hand. Not alcohol, just water. His nerves were wired too tight for anything heavier. He looked at the old patch stitched into the inside of his jacket, the faded symbol of the brimstone, a symbol that had been erased from official records, but not from memory. He tapped the console. "Record message," he said. A soft chime acknowledged. He cleared his throat. "This is Commander Locke, Captain of the Ashbourne, survivor of the Brimstone Offensive, loyal to Earth, not to the cowards in the bunkers. We're heading into uncharted space, deep strike territory, not for conquest, not for treaties. We're going to dismantle every system that stood by while we burned. To those watching, this isn't a call for peace. It's a warning. We don't want a seat at your table. We are the fire that will burn it down." End message. When the Ashbourne lifted off, it did so without ceremony. No cheers, no flag waving, just the grinding roar of engines pulling Earth's vengeance back into orbit. And from above, Earth looked different now. Not healed, but awake. A sleeping animal with one eye open, scarred, and still dangerous. Because the war hadn't ended with Reddick, he was just the prologue. The real story was just beginning. And it wouldn't be written in treaties or books. It would be carved into metal across shattered planets and dying suns. Wherever they fled, whoever thought the humans were done, the Ashbourne would remind them, no one forgets the species that chose fire.